Morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Movement Radio. I am Chip Hazard.
I'm Talon Williams.
I'm Roger Sierra.
And today we're here with super special guest, owner, founder of the Huntsville Comic and Pop Culture Expo, Jeremy Long. Jeremy, how's it going today?
It's going very well. Very well. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you for agreeing to be on. This is it's an honor.
Absolutely.
I feel unprepared. Like you guys all have headphones and I don't. Like my son's headphones are here. They're not plugged in, but I feel like I should put them on. But as long as you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Yep.
And if you can hear us, we're good.
Yep. All right.
So we typically like to start these off with just a simple question. Who is Jeremy Long?
That is a great question. This is a complicated question. It all began in 1947. So my dad was born. But no, I'm just some dude in Huntsville. I'm married. I have 2 kids, 2 boys that are almost 9 and just turned 13. I've been married for 16 years. I'm sorry. It'll thank you. It'll be 16 years Friday. I'm rounding up. I'm 3 days away. So I'm claiming the 16th year.
I would too.
But
awesome.
My real job is missile defense. Always like saying that outside of a Huntsville setting, because in Huntsville nobody cares because everyone's either NASA or missile defense for the most part. But that's my real job, and I like to call the Expo. And I'm also a vendor. I sell comics. I often tell people it's a hobby that's gone incredibly wrong or incredibly right.
Wow.
You just blew Chip's brain just now.
Well, they're just 2 completely opposite ends of the spectrum. Missile defense, pop culture con.
Well, honestly, so that actually had a lot to do with me starting the show, because and we can get into this later, but like I started vending. I've always been into comics. I'll just go into it. I've always been into comics, and 13, 14 years ago, I started buying and selling, but just online. And then I started doing shows, and they were really fun. And there wasn't one in Huntsville. And I'm like, Huntsville's like the nerdiest town in America. Like you can't throw a rock without hitting an engineer here. So there's a lot of nerds with disposable income in the area. Somebody should do something. And nobody did. And then I'm like, oh, I guess I'm somebody. And so that's how it got started.
I mean, it's a good enough reason to start one.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a passion of yours, and there wasn't one around you. So
Right.
What was that first year like? We've asked that to a couple of different promoters of cons, and we've gotten varied answers. So I'm just wondering what your process of that first year was like.
So I'm going to take a few steps back before the first year. So I was always in restaurants. And the latest gig, I was a manager at a restaurant. And then in 2014, my second son was born. And 3 weeks later, I was let go. Basically, a new district manager came in, and almost like a coaching staff, they got rid of, a lot of people. And it was the best thing to happen to me. It was terrifying because, like I said, I had a 3-week-old and a 4-year-old, and all of a sudden I'm unemployed. And so I could have gone right back to a restaurant and, gotten a job, either waiting tables or managing again. But instead, I started doing shows. Like I said, I'd already been selling online. And I was like, well, let me try this show thing. And I enjoyed it. Well, so for 6 months, we lived off me selling comics. And it was a comfortable life too. Except for when, every month I had to write that check for insurance. That was no fun. But I got the bug. It bit me, and I enjoyed doing shows. Well, then I got an office job that October of 14, but I still kept doing shows. And then I was at a show in 2015 that was just dead. There were more vendors than there were patrons. And so it was a 2-day show, and I left at 1:00 on Saturday. It was supposed to be Saturday, Sunday, and I left at 1. I was like, this is ridiculous. And so the whole way home, it was about 2 hours away, I'm thinking, wow, they could have done this. They could have done this. They could have done this. And I get home, and my wife says, how was it? I'm like, well, it's terrible. It's 4:00 and I'm already home. The show doesn't end for 2 more hours. And she goes, well, is it something you just need to put your own show on? And I was like, well, I've basically been planning one for the last 2 hours. And so secured a date, got a venue. The first expo, it was a 1-day show in about a 12,000 square foot building. And I spent absolutely zero on marketing that year. I didn't have money. And so I made Craigslist posts, Facebook posts, made a Facebook page, and went to other events and passed out flyers and stuff. And so that first year, there was no guests. It was basically just a vendor show. We had some panels. So it was a 12,000 square foot building. I thought it'd be a good idea to put a stage in the middle and have bands play too. A lot of the vendors hated me for that. It was so dumb.
Put the bands in a separate room.
Yeah, and it was all just one big long building. But anyways, lesson learned. But yeah, going into it, I mean, I didn't know if 5 people were going to show up or 100 people were going to show up. But then, and we didn't do ticket pre-sales because I didn't know how to do ticket pre-sales. So it was just all at the door, and it was $10 to get in. But I had passed out so many flyers with coupons on the bottom. Plus, if anybody came in cosplay, they were $5. It was basically $5 to get in. But going into it that final week, I was like, all right, this is going to be pretty big. So I found a bigger location for a year out. And then sure enough, at that first show, we had about 1,500 people come through.
It was amazing.
It was insane. It was mid-March, and it was like 60 degrees outside. It was like a perfect sunny Saturday. And we had like 6 food trucks out there. And so one of my favorite scenes from that day is just, I walked outside and there was probably 300 people just sitting on the grass eating food. I mean, because it was just such a nice day. And then inside was packed, and so I was like, okay, so this is a thing now. And then we had like an after party at one of the breweries here, and a bunch of people showed up. And I mean, it was just a fun, that whole show. Like, I wish I could bottle that back up because it was very chill. There was no flights or guests or hotels to deal with. And it was fun. But that for me, it was fun. Everyone else, had fun, and that fun continues. And I still have fun planning these, but like, this year we have over 50 guests, so the logistics are nuts. And, we've grown by leaps and bounds every year, but it is still fun. And the fact that, I can bring a pretty cool event to Huntsville, to Alabama specifically, or, more broadly, actually, it's pretty neat. I mean, we have William Shatner coming. A lot of people have heard of that fella.
Maybe once or twice.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, come on, TJ Hooker. Come on.
Yeah.
Priceline negotiator.
So you said that first show was 1,500.
Yep.
What did you have last year? How many people do you guesstimate walked through your venue last year?
A hair over 12,000.
You went from
year 1 to year 7.
Wow.
1,500 to 12,000. That's
and this year,
absolutely amazing.
Well, and this year, this is quite the range, but I have no idea. You look at our lineup, and everything in this range is possible. But I'm saying we'll do between 15 and 25,000 this year. And so I just, this lineup is ridiculous. And a lot of people have asked me, how are you going to top it next year? And I'm like, I'll worry about that on April 25th, the day after the show.
Right.
But, it's to have, Shatner, and even Shatner aside, Mark Paul Gosselaar, Amy Jo Johnson, the other Star Trek people, Brent Spiner and John Delancey and Gates McFadden and Chandler Riggs from Walking Dead. I mean, it's a big lineup. And the comic lineup, I mean, like I said, I'm a big comics guy. To have Roy Thomas here, I mean, that he's one of the biggest names. I mean, he is a comic legend. And not to discount, Tom DeFalco and Ron Friends, and then Nathan Zerdy, who is one of the hottest cover artists right now for DC. It's the thing is we do have over 50 guests, but we have so many fandoms represented, and big members of those fandoms. Like, we have huge anime guests. We've got the 3 biggest voice actors from Star Wars. We have Mickey Mouse coming and Goofy. So it's just, we have something for everyone.
Yeah. And if you're a fan of professional wrestling, you have wrestlers going there. Mick Foley's supposed to be there this year. Danhausen, Jungle Boy, Anna Jay.
Yeah.
Going through, I'm on the official Huntsville Expo website right now, and you look at, Jason Marsden's also going to be there. You got, like what you said, Chandler Riggs, Jeff Anderson, and Brian O'Halloran.
Yeah, Clerks guys.
Clerks, that's incredible. Did you have any, I won't say big guests, but like, who were like the first, who was the first like big guest that you got to the expo?
So that's, so year one, we came out of it, no guests, and I was like, yeah, that was great. And then I there's a show in South Carolina Comic-Con in Greenville, South Carolina. It is my favorite show that I've never been to.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's, the guy who runs it, a guy named Rob, he owns Borderlands Comics in Greenville, South Carolina, which is one of my favorite comic shops to go to. My wife's family is from the Greenville area, so we go there we used to go there many times a year. Now it's just like once a year. But every time I go into the shop. Well, I had messaged and I said, hey, you run this big show. Can I come in and talk to you? And he said, sure. So I went in, and he seriously like sat down and talked to me for like 3 hours. Because I'm coming off this show that was a big success. And, one of the things he said was like, well, who were your guests this year? I was like, we didn't have any guests. He's like, well, you have to have guests. You're not going to grow if you don't have guests. And so I was like, how do you get guests? Because, my thought was, I see all these comic shops having like in-store signings and this kind of stuff. In my mind, there was just a Rolodex full of, comic names. And I mean, it made sense, but it doesn't exist. So I just started Googling people and reaching out and everything, and going to shows. And so for year 2, the first year we had guests, we had Joey Fatone, who is the coolest dude. We had David Yost. In fact, I met David Yost at Dragon Con in 2016 and just asked him, I was like, hey, would you ever do a show in Alabama? He said, absolutely. Just hit me up on social media. And so I did. And then about 4 months later, he was like, hey, sorry, I just saw this. Yeah, I'll come. I was like, neat. But we had Mike Grell, who's an artist and writer, awesome dude. And then we had Chris Claremont, which was nuts.
Yeah.
I seriously, even when I went to go pick him up from the airport, I thought I was like, there's no way Chris Claremont is going to be on this plane. Like, there's no way. Like, somebody punked me and I am, someone's going to come off. But no, sure enough, he came off the plane. It was the same flight as Joey Fatone. So I'm driving and my wife rode with me. So it was me, Claremont shotgun, and my wife is in the back with Joey Fatone and his agent. And I'm like, what a weird carpool this is. But yeah, so to start out with a Chris Claremont, level comic guest, that was huge. And then so the first year we had 4 guests, and the next year we had 8, and then next year we had about 20, and that was 19, 2025 guests, that was 19. And then 2020, we were supposed to have, 40 plus guests. Like, I was going all in with that guest lineup. And then 2020 happened. And our show was supposed to be in April, and we actually postponed it to July. And obviously things weren't much better in July, but we still had a show. And we had about 4,000 people come through the door. Now in 2019, we had about 6,000 people come. So it was definitely, a hit, but we did it so safe. We had 15-foot aisles, we had masks required. We put dots down every 6 feet everywhere that there was a line. But my thought was, if I'd canceled it, I would have lost money. If I had the show, I would have lost money. So my thought was, I'll have it. The show can lose money, but like all the vendors and some of the special guests who depend on these kind of shows for their livelihood can come out and, try to make some money. And I had several people tell me, because of this show, I can now limp along another month or two because, no shows were happening. And a lot of people, some people were able to do online sales, but not everybody. So right. It was definitely good. And then we've rebounded. 21 was great. And like I said, 22, we did 12,000 plus people. And this year, bonkers.
I love it. So 50 guests this year, started with 4. I'm sure every one of them holds a special place in your heart, but who has to date been your biggest grab? Like, this is the guy that I have to have.
So it would probably be last year with Kevin Eastman. That was insane. And I'd been trying to get him since 18. And it just kind of happened for last year. I'd gotten an email that basically said, hey, you're still on our wait list. We're having to make up these 20 shows for 21, and we're only doing a handful of shows. So do you still want to stay on the wait list for a possible 22 show? And I said, absolutely. Like, I will stay on the wait list until you stop doing shows or you come to my show. And I was like, yes, please, keep me on the wait list. Well, then like an hour later, I get an email back and it says, hey, we're checking with a show in North Carolina that we're doing because we don't want to overlap too much. We'll let you know. And I was like, they're checking what? I thought I was on the wait list. Am I on the bigger than wait list? I don't know. And so then I was like, well, depending on where in North Carolina, it's 9 to 15 hours away. Like, North Carolina isn't exactly close. And so then they wrote back and said, okay, well, we also have a show it was West Texas. I don't remember where, but would you be okay if we did that show, if we do your show? And I'm like, okay, now you're talking about doing my show. Like, is this happening? And, but anyways, it all worked out, and it was so cool because Eastman only did like 7 shows last year, and he did a tour shirt, and our logo is right next to San Diego Comic-Con's logo.
Oh, that's amazing.
Like, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was like, I got to get that. And so I actually got one of the shirts. But and then we did an exclusive cover with him because I'm like, if I get Eastman, I'm doing an exclusive cover. So we have the cover. It's, again, Huntsville, NASA, Space Camp and everything here. So the cover is basically the turtles at Space Camp. It's one of the coolest looking things I've ever been a part of. And I've got the original art in my office. Because that was the other thing. I was like, even if I, break even and end up with 1,000 extra copies of this book, at the end of it, I'll have published Eastman art on my wall, and it's glorious.
Yeah, you'll have to send us a picture of that. I
sure.
Definitely want to see that. Huge Turtles fan.
Absolutely.
Man, that's like one of my bucket list people to meet. Him. So it's weird. It's all Kevins. It's Kevin Smith and Kevin Eastman. Those are like bucket list guys for me.
Well, I will say, so in September, the other good thing about running a show, or one of the things I like, is I've met so many other showrunners who have become, friends, not just industry, partners or whatever. But every fall, my must-do show is Memphis Comic Expo. Now, I know to go from one end of Tennessee to the other end, it's, like 47 hours or whatever.
It's only 4 hours.
Right.
Mhm.
But anyways,
Cool.
Eastman's going to be in Memphis in September. So
I was looking at that
it's a
and
great show.
definitely want to try to reach out and maybe do business with them. If not, just buy a ticket and go meet Eastman.
For sure.
So
The most chill, I mean, you'd expect it, but I mean, seriously, like the most chill person I've ever dealt with. So he was Saturday, Sunday only. We had a private signing with him Friday night, and we were hanging out. I got to talk to him a little bit. And then Saturday, I ran into him and his wife at breakfast at the hotel. And the word ever, as in whatever, whenever, whichever, was said probably about 15 or 20 times between the three of us in about 5 minutes. Because they were like, what time does it start? I'm like, well, it starts at 10. VIPs enter in at 9:30, but whenever you want to come, whatever you need. And they're like, well, when do you want us there? I was like, whatever. They're like, we'll come whenever. And I'm like, I was like, you're Kevin Eastman and I'm just some schmo with a show. Like, I'm going to do whatever you need. But they were like trying to go above and beyond to, do whatever I needed. So super cool guy. And his wife is awesome too.
that's awesome. I love, there's that old saying, like, never meet your heroes. But everyone that I have ever met has been like super chill, super cool. And I'm like, is that saying really true? Or was somebody just like a turd to their hero and the hero let them have it?
Off camera, I can tell you some stories.
And plus, people may just be having a bad day, and you just call
Exactly. Well, and that's like, so we've had Lou Ferrigno twice,
Okay.
and I consider him a friend. Like, funny story. About a year ago, again, my real job is missile defense. I was in Alaska on work, and I was texting him coming out of a restaurant, slipped on ice, and fell and broke a rib.
Ooh.
And I told him about that, and I said, it's your fault. And so when he was at the show, my wife brought the boys up, and I was just going around introducing them to all the guests, and he said, hi, I'm Lou, I broke your husband's rib. Like, I know. But like, anyways, he was born 75% deaf, and so a lot of people thought he was rude because if you didn't have eye contact with him, because he could barely hear, but he was more of a lip reader. So if you're trying to get his attention, he doesn't see you. People thought he would ignore them, but he just couldn't hear. Now he's gotten cochlear implants, so it's a lot better. But yeah, he's super nice guy. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks that he was born deaf, but
right.
it's awesome
He
that
overcame it. Yeah.
he overcame it, and so who on this year's lineup, who are you looking most forward to? Like, obviously they all hold that special spot,
Right.
or you wouldn't have reached out to book them, but there's always the one person like that's I'm looking most forward to.
Oh, I mean, I guess the obvious answer, is Shatner, because how cool is that?
Yeah.
But I definitely have different reasons for different people. Like, I'm excited for Mark Paul Gosselaar because, I mean, who didn't grow up on Saved by the Bell? Like, and in fact, my wife, well, I'm sorry for your childhood, Roger. But in fact, my wife and 13-year-old are like going through the whole series, and it somewhat still holds up. But and then I'm excited for Amy Jo Johnson to be here because this will complete, we've had every original Ranger with her being here. And then even Chandler Riggs, super nice guy. I've met him before. And Mick Foley, like, I've never met him. Excited to meet him.
I met him once and blew his mind. He did a stand-up tour and came to Chattanooga.
Mhm.
And so I went, and he did a small little meet and greet afterwards. And I got a picture with an autograph. and we were talking about his books. And my favorite book by him isn't an autobiography, not one of his. It's a book called Tatum Brown. And he looked at me like when I told him that, and he was like, shut the hell up. Who set you up to rib me? Like, nobody knows about that book. And I was like, no, I do. And it was a really good book. So that dude is really cool too.
And two others I'm looking forward to this year are actually two return guests from year 2, David Yost and Joey Fatone, because when they were here, we had barely 20,000 square feet. We did a little over 2,000 people. And I mean, I know they do, you know, a crap ton of shows every year, but like, I want them to see like how much this show has grown. That they were the first 2 media guests we had, and now, you know, they're coming back, and it's going to be bananas. But I'm not a big anime person, but I'm excited for our anime lineup. It's one of the best anime lineups. I mean, we have a better anime lineup than a lot of anime shows.
Yes.
Bryce Poppenbrook is one of the hottest anime voice actors right now. I mean, he is a main character on like every big anime outside of like My Hero Academia. But you know, so we've got people from all over, and Ashley Eckstein and the trio from Clone Wars. I've met Ashley Eckstein. She is super, super nice. And in my opinion, she has one of the coolest signatures too. So worth it. But yeah, I mean, to pick one, I would have to say Shatner. But you know, I'm excited for the whole lineup. Even Barry even the low end. No, but I'm a big Rocky Horror Picture Show fan. So having Barry Bostwick here is super cool. And you know, I'm just trying to think of the whole lineup. And you know, before last year, really, I could tell you every single person we had every year, because it was not a lot every year. But now, like, I'm forgetting. I look at, you said, Talon, you had the website pulled up. I'll pull that up and be like, oh yeah, so, they're coming.
All right, so just off the top, I'm starting at the top. Obviously, we said William Shatner, Ashley Eckstein, we talked about Bryce Poppenbrook, Dean Cain, who played in Lois and Clark: The Real Adventures of Superman, Amy Jo Johnson, David Yost, Mark Paul, I can't pronounce that guy's last name. I'm so sorry. Zach Morris is trash. Joey Fatone, Matt Lannert, James Arnold Taylor, who was the voice of Leonardo in the TMNT, and he was also the voice of Ratchet from Ratchet and Clank. Brett Spiner from Star Trek. Gates McFadden, also from Star Trek, and then of course the wrestlers I mentioned earlier: Mick Foley, Danhausen, Jungle Boy, and Anna Jay. Maylee Flanagan from Naruto. Yuri Lowenthal. Again, some of these people I don't know most of them, and I apologize for that.
A lot of those coming up, those are all Naruto people. Like, we have the second largest Naruto reunion ever.
Yeah, you got like 10 different voice actors for that one. But Kate Higgins, Tara Platt, Christina V, Erica Schroeder, Colleen O'Shaughnessy, Malay Lee, Brett Iwan, Bill Farmer, who played the voice of Goofy, Jason Marsden, who played the voice of what was that? Is that that ain't the Captain's Sabrina Teenage? That's not the same cat, I don't think, is it?
That's Jason Marsden. It's the cat from Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus. Okay, that's what I thought it was. Yeah.
But then he was also he was Impulse from Young Justice and Max Goof from Goofy Movie. That dude's got serious credits. It's crazy.
Yes. Bradley Pierce, who played Chip from Beauty and the Beast. James Murray, John Delancey, Amari Katz, Vanessa Shaw, Roy Thomas, Ron Friends, Tom DeFalco, big fan of the podcast himself, Mr. Ming Chen, Felicity Rose, David Sheridan, Julian Richens, like you said earlier, Chandler Riggs, Jeff Anderson, Brian O'Halloran, Omid Bataha. I want to say that's how his name is pronounced. I don't know. I apologize. Barry Boswick, as you just mentioned earlier, Michael Yurchek, Brian Donovan, Tim Gibbous, Nathan. Thank you. Flatline Comics is also going to be there. Lana Kangas, Brian Silverbacks, and Mark Spears. Those are all the guests that's going to be at the Huntsville Pop Culture Expo. Yeah, a lot of interesting characters, a lot of interesting guests that you have. Going back through just looking at some of them, is there one particular one? I don't know, you may have already answered this question. Is there one particular one that you are trying your best aside? I know you talked about Kevin Eastman just a little while ago, about he's like one of the ones that you want to kind of bring in. Are there any other ones out there besides Kevin Eastman that you were like, maybe I want to bring them in to see, what could happen?
Well, I mean, people often ask me, if you could have any guest, money's no option, you can have any guest, who would it be? And my answer is always Mark Hamill. But that's an impossible kind of thing. But honestly, one of my, big targets is Matthew Lillard.
Yes.
Because in my opinion, yeah, based on that reaction too, he's the perfect guest because he covers 3 huge, very separate fandoms. I mean, he's got the horror aspect with, Scream, 13 Ghosts, and other movies. He's got the kids aspect with Scooby, obviously, but then he's a big tabletop gamer. He's a big D&D nut. He owns a company that makes high-end miniatures. Mm-hmm. So he
did not know that.
Yeah, he is like the perfect guest. And so, it hasn't worked out on timing yet, but he's one that I'm after. There's a couple of other comic names I'm after, like Scotty Young. I've been trying to get him for a while. And we were supposed to have Chris Claremont again this year, but he actually had to cancel because he has to go to a wedding. So we've got him penciled in for next year. But I mean, there's, every year there's, people I see that I want to, and as we get bigger, we can get some of these bigger guests. Like we couldn't have handled a Shatner level guest year 3, year 4. This year I described it as terrifyingly doable.
I like that.
Different way of saying cautiously optimistic is terrifyingly doable.
I like it.
Merch.
All right. So you, prior to recording, you said you're kind of an open book. What is the one piece of advice you would give somebody who was looking to start their own comic and pop culture expo?
So these things are popping up like weeds. And when we first did the expo, first year was 2016, there was really nothing in Huntsville. There was a show that was going on at the library, but it was, contained to the library. And so it was a good show, good dude ran it, but obviously it couldn't expand and grow. Now there are like 8 in Huntsville.
Oh, wow.
And most of them, which I think maybe all of them other than mine, but at least most of them are ran by people from out of town. It's these, cash grab people come in, do a hotel show that's the same in every city, take the money and run kind of thing, over promise, under deliver. So with that said, my advice would be know your identity and charge per your identity. There's these shows that they promise, 150 vendors and 20 special guests, and they charge, $20 or $30 a day. And then you get there and it's in a 3,000 square foot ballroom with about 20 vendors and 5 special guests. And, after, 20 minutes, you've seen everything and you're done. And so they've ripped people off. Now there's nothing wrong with a show that is nothing but vendors, but don't charge $20 to get in, charge $5, charge $10, add some guests, start small. To, steal a reference from another pop culture, DC movies, they tried to catch up with Marvel too quick. And that was ultimately their demise. They were like, all right, we're 7 years behind Marvel. Let's make a movie and put everybody and their mom in it. And it was just garbage. And so, I've seen shows that have the mentality, I call it the Field of Dreams mentality. They think if I put on a show, it's going to be a hit. If I build it, they will come. But it's not. You have to advertise. You have to hit the pavement. You have to get out there. And so many shows try to go all in year one, and it might be decently attended, but then, it's not successful because you got a show with a lineup that should draw 20,000 people and 3,000 people come. It's not good. So, start small. Don't be afraid to build up to it. And know your identity. And, I often tell people, and this isn't one of those humble things, but I'll tell people that half the success of my show is the fact that it's in Huntsville. Because again, earlier there's a lot of nerds with disposable income that can support the show. But now we're at the point where I talked to a guy yesterday who he and his 29-year-old daughter are driving down from Virginia to come. Last year we sold tickets to 37 different states. But we sure as heck weren't doing that year one or two. So you got to start small. You got to be willing to, build up to it. I mean, if you had told me, not even 8 years ago, but if you had told me after year 3, all right, your show's going to be 15,000 people and William Shatner's coming, I would have been like, you've lost oxygen to your brain. Because after year 3, I mean, we had some, good guests, but not Shatner level, not Amy Jo Johnson level, So it's crazy. The phone calls I get from agents and guests alike, or texts I get, it's just bonkers. And me and my family, we laugh about it often. It's like, this is our, the fact that I can say Lou Ferrigno broke my rib, weird setting.
All right, man. We don't want to take up too much of your time. We greatly appreciate you coming on. We'll set the next 5 minutes or so, however long you need. Plug everything that you need to plug.
Well, thanks for having me on. As you can tell, I love talking about it. It's a passion project. Also, another reason I think it's been successful is I treat it like a business, but I don't. Well, I run it like a business, but I don't treat it like a business because I do it for fun. And people ask me how long I'm going to do it, and I tell them as long as it's fun, and it's still fun. It's a lot of hard work and sleepless nights and headaches, but at the end of it, to be at the show and to see everyone, to see the vendor, making that big sale, or to find, or the patron to find a book they've been looking for, or to meet an artist that has put something together for them. But the biggest is seeing that fan meeting that celebrity, and just last year we had Adassa who was in Encanto, and she actually dresses like her character. So these little girls and boys, my son was a big Encanto fan too, got to meet the character, and she does the voice, she sings with them, and having Jim Cummings in years past doing the Winnie the Pooh voice, or Tigger, or Darkwing Duck, whatever, and just seeing the post afterwards of I met Winnie the Pooh or whatever. It's fun. Plus we tie it to a charity. We support this charity here in North Alabama called Kids to Love. They help foster kids in every aspect of the word. Support. They help get them adopted. They get them, equipment that the families need. They do entire Christmases, all sorts of stuff. And so my favorite thing from the expo is the day after the expo, driving out there and handing them a check. Last year, my wife and I, we drove out there and handed them a check for $10,000. Like, that was just, it blew my mind doing it, and it felt so good. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun show. It's family friendly. And that means not just in content, but kids 12 and under are free, because we want to make it as accessible as possible to families to come out. Because it's a cool thing. Kids love it, because where else can you go that you can bump into Darth Vader and Spider-Man and Superman and Goku and, an assortment of, video game characters and everything. So it's fun. It's 3 days, April 21st through 23rd. The website is hsvexpo.com. You can get tickets on there, and you can see all the guests and pricing information, all that good stuff. We've got hotel links on there. I think there might be a few rooms left. I mean, we've had more hotel blocks than we've had in years past, and most of them are sold out. This thing's going to be big. It's going to be fun. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to you guys being there and seeing it too.
Awesome. We greatly appreciate it. We look forward to it. Definitely look forward to meeting you in person. I know you'll be running around crazy
Right.
During the event, but maybe we can break a 30-second, hey, nice to meet you kind of thing. So again, thank you for agreeing to be on the show. Thank you for having us at your show.
Absolutely.
Really means a lot. So if you want to stick around for just a quick second, we'll pay some bills and send you on your way.
Absolutely. Chip, what you want to say before we get out of here tonight?
I mean, as always, check out movementradio.us. That is your one-stop shop for all things Movement Radio.
What you got to say, Raj?
As always, go to YouTube, subscribe, hit the like and comment. And obviously, after you watch this video, set yourself out to go to the Huntsville Expo, of course.
Absolutely. And shout out to all of our sponsors. We do love and appreciate you guys so much. GearAnime.com, Canva.com, AudibleTrial.com, Zulily, GetResponse, Elementor. Got to remember all of them. Sorry. Entertainment Earth, Just Cash Clothing, and W.GG. To all of our friends that's been down with us since day one, thank you. You know who you are. And thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. Once again, Jeremy, thank you so much for being here with us. We really do appreciate it, my man. And we'll catch you guys next time right here on Movement Radio. Chip, let's hit him with the outro.
Please do not leave without leaving a like, comment, share, and subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and right here on YouTube.
Make sure you follow us on all of our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Check out the YouTube channel, subscribe, click that bell to get notified of our latest videos. Streamlabs.com/Movement Radio/merch. Go cop some merch. And once again, movementradio.us, your one-stop shop for all things Movement Radio.
I am Chip Hazard.
I'm Talon Williams.
And I'm Roger Sierra.
And this
I'm Jeremy.
is,
Yes.
and this is Movement Radio.